All right, America. Just so that you know, we are expanding our reach thanks to our good friends and producers at WVW TV and the Lindell Network. Not only are we live on WVW TV, we're also on Rumble live on my channel, also on Getter live on my channel, Ivan Raiklin. And I also am live right now through StreamYard on other platforms known as X Live on both of my accounts, Raiklin and Ivan Raiklin, and some of the other commie platforms as we push out content to the normies. And if they happen to censor or ban me, I could care less because we're going to go ahead and make sure that we push truth into their feeds as much as we can. And if they don't allow us, they can come over that is not censored by the FBI and the other lawless and illegitimate executive branch actors. All right. Speaking of quasi legitimate actors within our federal government, the House of Representatives. People ask me all the time, why are you focused so much on the House of Representatives? Well, because it's our one institution right now that is in a position to start clawing back from the lawless tyranny that has occurred to us the last several years. And luckily, we're continuing to upgrade. We have a new Speaker of the House. By the way, I'm kind of disappointed in him at this point. It's been 2 weeks and the J6 tapes have not been released. Now, I know the gentleman. I like him. He is much better than Kevin McCarthy. But Speaker Johnson, sir, I know you're focused on the appropriations bills. There are 12 of them. I think you need to continue to escalate the transparency so that America can regain its trust in the one institution that is teetering on success, which is the House of Representatives. And from there, we can continue on to make sure that that spreads through our other institutions going into the 2024 electoral cycle. Now, a little update about the House of Representatives. I was up there earlier today. The Judiciary Committee had a hearing, and it's known as Members Day. And that usually, I'll give you a couple of examples of what Members Day looks like. So when it was done by the House Administration Committee, House Administration has oversight and funds the legislative branch. So the House, I should say, of the legislative branch. And certain members of Congress go before that committee and ask for a particular budget for their office. So that would be a members' day where they essentially explain why they need a difference in what the normal traditional allocation should be for a particular member. Usually you'll get that from a chair of a committee, since they, particularly the newer ones, whether it's the judiciary weaponization, they'll need a different style of budget than had been allocated in the past. But then when it comes to other committees, you'll have members of Congress, of the House, that are not on the committee that they have to present before, and they usually present legislation that is within the jurisdictional frame of that respective committee that is doing the hearing for Members Day. So today I had the opportunity to just sit behind several members of Congress, one of which was, I mean, there were, I think, 5 or 6 that they had there earlier today. One prominent individual, which I would have to say that I'm not a fan of, is Young Kim. And the reason why I'm not a fan of this squishy Republican, and I get it from her perspective, her response would be, I'm in a purple district, I'm in a Biden plus whatever district. I get it. I get that argument. It still doesn't answer for you having the ability and right to take away constitutional rights of upwards of 800,000 citizens and voters of, I should say, citizens of Georgia. And what I'm referring to is Young Kim, amidst all the other Ukraine first, Israel first rhetoric and voting that she has done, By the way, she represents California. She represents the district in the Los Angeles metro area. She was one of the 11 members of Congress that voted to expel Marjorie Taylor Greene off of her committee assignments when she was a freshman congresswoman last cycle. And it was for speech that Marjorie Taylor Greene had made prior to her even thinking about becoming a candidate for Congress. Let me say this again. Young Kim, along with 10 of her other China First Republicans, I say China First in this instance because they espouse censorship just like the Communist Party of China would see as being laudatory. So Young Kim, along with 10 other Republicans, decided, you know what? We're going to violate the First Amendment and the Fifth Amendment, not only of Marjorie Taylor Greene by expelling her for free speech that she conducted before she even thought of becoming a member of Congress. Well, guess what? That also impacted her constituents that were now not being represented via committee assignments through their congresswoman. That is unacceptable. And so I thought to myself, why don't I sit in the background and provide myself an opportunity to potentially deep state maraud based on the sounds that Congresswoman Young Kim would make. Well, she didn't say anything too negative, so I didn't take the opportunity there to call her out. And it was because right after she had left, the next person that came up to give their proposal for an amendment, or excuse me, for a bill before the Judiciary Committee, of which Jim Jordan chairs, was Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. I found it quite intriguing or interesting to say the least, and I just posted it on my Twitter. Mr. Producer, I don't know if you can pull that up. I think it's on my subscribe tweet. But essentially, it's me sitting in the background in the third row there before that committee. And to the right, you have Young Kim waiting to speak. And then to the left, a couple seats over, is Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. Meanwhile, yes, that was the one censored the other, or I should say expelled. So I'm sure there's no positive relationship there. Maybe there isn't. Now, when Marjorie Taylor Greene came up to speak, she did address an issue that is very important to our national conversation. And I'd like to listen in right now, and you can see some of my facial expressions on where I am supportive of what she's trying to promulgate. So let's, Mr. Producer, let's listen in to Marjorie Taylor Greene and the bill she's trying to promote.
This is my signature bill, and it has been a model used across the country by many states as they are working on passing or have already passed bills and made into law.
It's weird when I unplug it, I lose the signal. So what I wanted to do was make sure the audio was coming out of my iPad. And it dropped the Skype call when I unplugged it. Not good. We'll have to figure this out for next week, folks. That's unfortunate. I'm waiting on Mr.
There is also a growing movement all across America called detransition. These are many young people that made the tragic mistakes of having mastectomies, having castrations done to them, having genital mutilation surgeries when they were still in their early teens, maybe even before they were teenagers. And as they grew up, they realized they made tragic mistakes to their body, and they are trying so hard to warn many others, don't go down this road. But here's what's most disturbing. Gender dysphoria is not a virus. This is not a disease that's spreading. It's an ideology, and it's spreading across social media, and it's rapidly growing. In 2017, there were 15,000 cases, but now in 2021, and we don't have the numbers for 22 or 23, but by 2021, it was over 42,000 cases. This is new diagnoses in ages 6 to 17. Now, here's what's disturbing for any of my friends that think this is a federalism issue. It is not. Because in the United States today, we have over 12 states that are either passing bills or have signed into law laws that will take the rights away from parents to protect their children. This is what makes it a federal issue. We only have 19 states that are in the process of banning or restricting minors' access to gender-affirming care. Those have been implemented in those states, but if you look at over 12 states, and it's growing, where they are passing laws to take away the rights of parents and even take children away from their parents, we have to step in and make it a felony to perform gender-affirming care. I have example after example I'd like to introduce into the record of news stories where this is happening at large scale, talking about custody battles and judges determining whether parents are affirming their children's care. This is such a serious issue, and it's such a radical ideology, and it is growing at a rate that we cannot control, but it needs to be stopped right now. Our job, our greatest job that we have as adults, our greatest job that we have as lawmakers is to protect children. It is to protect children at all times, and we cannot allow this to continue. And if we allow this to continue, hiding behind
30 seconds left.
Okay.
Our founding fathers would never say it's up to a state to take away, for their government to be able to take children away from parents. We can't allow this to continue. And so, Mr. Chairman, I yield back my time and we'll take any questions.
I think the gentlelady, without objection, the gentlelady's articles will be entered into the record. We thank you for your testimony and your passion for protecting kids.
All right. So, having said that, a couple of things I wanted to add. Number one, we need to use the proper terminology as it relates to this topic. Number one, we cannot allow social media companies that are owned, influenced, manipulated, or inspired by foreign adversaries to promote the castration, mutilation, disfigurement, sterilization of our children. And I'm referring to that big one that is influenced and owned by China. Okay? There needs to be legislation on that. That's where the federal hook, I believe, and the national security hook comes into play in order to provide for the common defense. Well, when foreign adversaries are going into our social media streams through foreign owned, manipulated, coerced companies in order to destroy our society, particularly our next generation, through the promotion of mutilation, so that these medical companies in the United States and global medical companies can offer yet another revenue stream, which is, lopping parts of the body off, slapping parts of bodies of other folks that don't really exist on one particular human being. Well, guess what? That should be much more than a felony with maximal punishment for each transgression of promotion of that. So one avenue that we can take is to punish financially those that run these companies and anyone else promoting this sort of mutilation, okay? And then any state actor at the state level that is promoting this, particularly as it starts to impact any federal employee, military service member, and I'm referring to California's different rules and laws. It'd be nice to stop all that from taking place. So the only thing that I would add to what Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene said to that is, at each instance, we need to use the right terminology to explain what is going on. Otherwise, these radical mutilation promotion domestic terrorists that lean towards the Democrat Party, which is yet another domestic terrorist organization, in my opinion, we can't let them continue to promote and foment this sort of activity, whether it's witting or unwitting, at the behest of our foreign adversaries. Okay? Now, what else happened today in Congress? Well, we happened to sit in there. There were some votes that were taking place, but I also had an opportunity to have a nice discussion with one of the good eggs from Congress from Wisconsin. Now, I get it. Everyone has their deficiencies, but I would have to say the best member of the federal delegation in Congress, in the House, from Wisconsin, is Congressman Tom Tiffany, who happens to be a member of the House Freedom Caucus. If you don't remember, well, he was one of the speakers at an event that I went to at the St. Croix County Lincoln Reagan dinner. I spoke there as well and kind of laid the case out, and we agree on many things. We just had a nice little conversation to determine how we can continue to expand and grow Freedom Caucus ideas and, I guess, conservative values within his sector of Wisconsin and maybe the broader Wisconsin, so that we move from this cowardly led Republican conference, particularly at the state legislative level in Wisconsin, to a more robust and vigorous defender of our constitutional rights. So we had a nice conversation. Hopefully in the future, we'll have him on a future episode of the Raiklin Report. Now, having said that, our debut of a member of Congress to be interviewed on the Raiklin Report is going to be on Monday. So I don't think I've reported this yet, but I'm going to start having more and more guests on the program that can give us insight that you basically can't get anywhere else, right? Obviously, over the last, now a full 10 months into this 118th Congress, I've had the opportunity to engage with many members of the House Republican Conference, particularly those in the Freedom Caucus, and even more so those that actually have courage. I'm talking about the Real Team 6 members from back in January, and now the Great 8 members that were instrumental in the removal of Kevin McCarthy. Yesterday, I had an opportunity to have a brief conversation in an elevator with Congresswoman Nancy Mace, who was surprisingly the wild card that I had forecasted that would potentially be the one to remove Kevin McCarthy, and she did. So she has definitely, in my opinion, moved in an appropriate direction, thankfully, because prior to, I was not a significant fan of hers. And I told her in person that I was not a fan of hers previously, but after what she did on the Oversight Committee hearing earlier this year, where she basically called out Vijay Gadde, Yoel Roth, and Jim Baker, particularly Vijay Gadde, who was the head of trust and safety, who was the general counsel, over at Twitter 1.0, in that she being Nancy Mace, Congresswoman Mace, was injured by the clot shot. And she said it publicly. When I heard her, I was sitting in the room, and I'm thinking to myself, as I'm listening to the members of Congress speaking and the colloquy, I thought to myself, okay, I'm listening, same old. They're just calling out stuff that I've known for years. As soon as Congresswoman Mace spoke, I mean, I was shocked, right? to put it lightly, that she said that and was now on board, literally awake, unfortunately, due to having accepted the unsafe and ineffective DNA mutilation injection. But thankfully, she is a critical thinker that adjusted her perspective on this particular subject and is now vigorously calling it out. And I think that experience really, from my perspective, really opened her mind up to seeing that it wasn't just that she and the rest of us were manipulated into believing. Many more things of which I write about in my Substack at ivanraiklin.substack.com. And that's the entire censorship industrial complex. Not only did it apply to the quote unquote vaccines, the PCR tests, the masking, the ventilators, basically everything that was dampened, censored, shadow banned, deboosted, whatever you want to call it. Every single one of those pieces of content was not disinformation and is turning out to be the prevailing truth now after Twitter files and because of some of the work that Congresswoman Mace did. And so she was heavily involved. She and Congressman Tim Burchett from Tennessee, by the way, Congresswoman Mace is from South Carolina. Tim Burchett from Tennessee, and he was the other one that came out, and it was a surprise that he came out publicly against Kevin McCarthy. And so thankfully to them, they did that, and we've upgraded to a better Speaker of the House. But having said that, to go back to what I was originally going to say in this segment, was that our very debut interview of a congressman on the Raiklin Report will be none other than, drum roll, you probably thought it was going to be Congresswoman Nancy Mace. I get it. I kind of like puffed her up for a few minutes there. It will not. It will be Congressman Tim Burchett. And the reason why is because, well, I asked and he accepted. And then we worked through his comms team, and they're going to come on for a few minutes on Monday. And it'll be interesting what he has to say. I'd like to ask those that are listening in right now to send me via whatever you'd like, a direct message, comment here on Rumble, on Getter. I'll take a look and see what you want to know about Congressman Tim Burchett. But I'll have to say this. He is literally, I'd have to say he's the most jovial, funny member of Congress that has a very good sense of humor, okay? So for that job, some people consider it stressful, I guess, but he always likes to make it enjoyable, especially during his colloquy with the different folks that he is in front of as they testify. And so hopefully he brings in that levity, but more importantly, he'll give us some insight on, his decision-making process on why he decided to pivot away from Kevin McCarthy. He put it up. We'll play that video and the run-up that he did on Twitter that really got things going. And that was, I think, the initial domino that started to get people thinking that this motion to vacate is probably going to take place, at least for me anyway. So we moved from, so he'll talk about that, and then I'll ask him whether or not he thinks it's an upgrade, and hopefully he can comment because, well, he sits on the Oversight Committee, Oversight and Government Investigations Committee, and that's the committee that's really focused in on, with the chairman, Jim Comer, of going after and exposing for the trillionth time at this point, the Biden criminal syndicate, particularly evidence coming from that Biden criminal syndicate laptop. And it'll be interesting to ask him, this would be, depending how much time he gives us, 10, 15 minutes, it'd be interesting for him to answer the question of, would you consider requesting that Chairman Comer send a subpoena over to Twitter, Instagram, Instagarbage, right? LinkedIn, basically all the social media platforms of which the Biden criminal syndicate has an account, not only limiting to social media, but every single account type that it was listed by Marco Polo USA and that has been identified as being owned by Hunter Biden, etc. Why not go ahead and subpoena all of it and get all the direct messages of Twitter, etc.? And why stop there? Maybe coordinate with the Judiciary Committee so that we can see the link analysis, the links between the 51 that provided cover for the Biden criminal syndicate laptop. And let's find out about the 9 others that signed off on that, that it was had all the earmarks of a Russian information campaign, as they claim. I'd like to know who those 9 unnamed former intelligence officers are. Because I can tell you this much, it wasn't me. But I would like to know who they are. Next up, how about we go into and identifying all the direct messages and all the content created amongst all the social media platforms by none other than, wait for it, the 39 that unmasked Flynn. What about Eric Ciaramella? If he's got an account, maybe he's got an account under a pseudonym. What about the Vindman brothers? What about the attorneys for Eric Ciaramella, the whistleblower, Mark Zaid, and Andrew Bakaj? What about others that were in that ecosystem, like Sean Misko? What about staffers for Adam Schiff? What about those on the Mueller investigatory team? Do any of them have Twitter accounts? I suspect that at least one of them does. And what about those that were on the Durham team? Do they have a Twitter or social media accounts? I want to see everything. Okay? And you know what? Depending on what private email server that they were using, maybe they were using Google and Gmail and other private servers. How about we subpoena those, Mr. Jim Jordan and Jim Comer? Wait, why stop there? Why don't we go ahead and subpoena everything going on the Jack Smith team, and whether or not they have content that needs to be looked at and scrutinized as the House determines whether or not to impeach Biden criminal syndicate leader, the warlord, the Chinese Communist Party ambassador to the U.S. squatting in the White House. I think just by asking that question, it might get some creative juices flowing. And did I talk about that with members of the Judiciary Committee today? I did. I asked if they are considering doing that. Hopefully they do. Again, all I do is make First Amendment sounds peacefully. And if those sounds resonate, well, then maybe we see the fruits of those sounds in writing. And then we go from there. Anyway, what are we at right now? I'm trying to see what time it is. We got a couple minutes left. So as we wrap up the week with the Raiklin Report, big progress being made, okay? Last week, we got a new Speaker of the House. Some things that need to happen still are the J6 stuff. I was hoping that we would have some progress today. One thing that I did see is that Lara Logan just texted me a link to what she just produced. I'll have to post it up on my Twitter, basically, and my other social media. It's a little bit more detail on RAEPs. So I think at this point, next week should be a focus in on the release of the J6 footage. And then one more thing I would like to note, because there's so much information coming in, a lot of people are telling me different things. It appears as though one source told me from Florida that Nikki Haley will not be showing up to tomorrow's event. That might mean she might be dropping out. And my analysis tells me that it is likely because the Uniparty is going to be propping up Glenn Youngkin, but that will only take place after the Virginia elections on Tuesday. Anyway, stay tuned. Monday, we're going to have a nice show. Congressman Tim Burchett, he already committed. Hopefully he makes it, and we can ask him some questions. If you want to ask a specific question, DM me on one of the social media platforms that you're connected to me with, or here on Rumble, and I'll try to throw that question in there to him. All right, with that, have a good weekend. Raiklin Report out.
In today's fast-paced world, maintaining your brain's health